today to say hello to our friends that are listening to us. Today is the 21 of October, 2023. It's a beautiful day of fall. And I would like to introduce our friend Alba Morales, who is going to make us a wonderful presentation as always. And I hope we are in one thought. So thank you for watching us right now, and please come and join us, Alba. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Dione, for the introduction. We have a prayer here. We hope that you have a prayer there. So uh, let us present here. Okay, here we go. So today's presentation is about Emmanuel. Emmanuel, the extraordinary story of the Spirit who found Jesus. And we are going to disclose right away. We borrow this title from a YouTube channel in Portuguese that is called Canal da Filosofia Espírita, so channel of Spiritist philosophy. And we love the expression and the title, and they have a very beautiful, like about 30 minutes video in which they summarize some of the previous existences of Emmanuel. And why we are going to review this today? Uh, because it is good to think, at least for us, it has an element of education. When you look up for role models like Emmanuel, but then the tendency is to think like he was this almost perfect spirit from our very human point of view. And he's bright and he's loving and he's tender and he has such a love for humanity. And the tendency is like, okay, Emmanuel is being always that way, which it is not. Like all of us, he went through different existences, very likely in different planets and then on planet Earth. And then through his hard work, dedication, perseverance, and effort, he got where he is. We also would like to say that we took the information from the channel of Spiritist Philosophy, which is in Portuguese in YouTube. We also took it from, let us hold on because we forgot the name. It's another YouTube channel that is in Portuguese that is called Valor Espírita, Spirit its value. And we definitely use the research that Gerardo Lemos Neto, or Gerardo Lemos Neto, he's a spiritist speaker from Brazil, and he got the blessing to be near Chico for about 17 years or so, and to follow him and to be a very close friend of Chico. So Gerardo, or Geraldinho, as we call him in the Spiritist movement, he started taking some pieces of information that were disclosed to him either by Chico when he was incarnated and then by Chico when he is discarnated. And Geraldinho created this beautiful table in which he creates like a timeline for Emmanuel's reincarnations, and he put it together with some of Emmanuel's books that we are going to see in this presentation, and saying who was who in that specific book. Let us say 2,000 years ago, he was a senator, And that's the image that we have right now from him. He wanted to, let us say, to represent himself to us in that way. And then there are other characters in the books, 2,000 years ago, 50 years later, Hail Christ, Renunciation, etc. There are some other characters in the books that they also go from reincarnation to reincarnation. And Geraldino's research goes up to the 20th century, in which they found these same characters reincarnated in Brazil, and they were good friends of Chico. But today, no, we're not going to talk about this family in Brazil that lived like in the very first 50, 60 years of last century, and they know about this. But we want to see Emmanuel, all right? So we want to start with this affirmation from Allan Kardec. To be born, to die, to be reborn yet again, and constantly progress. That is the law. And this is the framework for our presentation today. Reincarnation as a blessed opportunity for us to progress. We are going to talk about some of the existences of Emmanuel. Not all of them. There are more, obviously. He disclosed only X number of existences, but definitely there is more because there is a gap between the 6th century and then we go to the 11th century, and there is nothing there, but obviously he came here, right? Okay, so let us go. The first existence that we know of Emmanuel, it was in the 9th century before Christ. His name was Simas, and he was the great prince of Egypt. So let us go a little bit back here, because we already start like a prince. And not any prince, the great prince of Egypt. We know that at the beginning of planet Earth, when the first humans were walking the planet, the great kindness and love of Master Jesus, who is the governor of our planet, he received a request from other Christs from the planet of Capella. At the time, Capella was in transition, like we are right now. And they were these terrible wars and terrible situations. And there was a group of spirits that they were very rebellious, very knowledgeable about science and technology, and they were scholars in so many areas, but morally speaking, they didn't grow up. And the planet needed to move forward. So the mercy of God basically took all these spirits in spaceships, invisible spaceships, because we are talking about the spirit, right? And they asked Jesus if they can bring all these spirits to a primitive planet at the time that was planet Earth. And Jesus and the other high evolved spirits that control, command, and bless planet Earth, they accept because we needed this progress, intellectually speaking. So Jesus have and this is in the book
On the way to the light.
On the Way to the Light. Thank you, by Andrea Luis, I believe.
No, I think it's the name.
And it's Emmanuel. Yeah, it's Emmanuel, On the Way to the Light. And there is this beautiful meeting in which Jesus encouraged all of these spirits and welcomed them with such a love and kindness to give them a new opportunity to learn and to grow morally speaking. So then we have different civilizations. One of them they were located in Egypt, some others in China, some others in the in the Ganges River area. There are two more that the uh, area, or how do you say, the German race, and some other that escape. The Greek. So all this knowledge that they have, they develop, and that's what we learn history about the ancient Egypt. So they knew about life after life. They knew about communication with the spirits, and they knew in their subconscious that they didn't belong to planet Earth, so they were always thinking on going back to the stars, which is their planet. Therefore, they built these pyramids. They were all constantly having this longing for their former home. All this group of spirits came, provide us what we will need. They learn what they needed to learn, and they depart. They went to Capella and some other places. However, some of these spirits, they fall in love with planet Air. Who doesn't, right? Especially if you're in El Cairo, that area, that region is beautiful. So some of them stay. All this background to say that if you are a great priest in Egypt, you are the recipient of great knowledge. We are not saying that Emmanuel is coming from Capella because we don't know. So we want to clarify that. We are not saying that. But if you are in such a high position in which you influence a large group of people, is because you already acquire certain skills. So, and this is the first reincarnation that Chico Xavier shared with us about Emmanuel. Can you imagine? The bar is too high. So from there, we go to two reincarnations that he had in Rome. The first one, it was the consul Publius Cornelius Lentulus Sura. It was between the second to the first century before Christ. And his story is reflected in a book that is not yet translated into English, which is called Alem do Parnaso. I'm saying that way. Alem do Parnaso, meaning beyond the grave, right? So we don't know a lot. We don't have a lot of information about Consul Publius, but definitely was a man of law, definitely was a well-educated man, and definitely was someone whose intellectual skills were well developed and was royal also to his country. So then on the first century in Rome, we see the senator Publius Lentulus Cornelius. We don't know what it's about the names, but they're so similar. It's impressive, right? So the senator Publius Lentulus Cornelius, we can see him in the book 2,000 years ago. So Senator Publius Lentulus Cornelius, he first lived in Rome, then he went to the Galilee, and in the Galilee, he had the opportunity of meeting Jesus in person. And they have this very intimate conversation. And Jesus invites Senator Publius Lentulus Cornelius to follow him. At the time, the senator, his commitment was with his country and also his family. His personal life wasn't really happy. He was very devoted to his wife. However, all his life, he always suspected that his wife wasn't faithful to him, even though he created and he wrote the most beautiful love poems to her. So his heart was broken, but he decided to serve the Roman Empire at that moment instead of serving Jesus. And in retrospective, Emmanuel shares to Chico that he regrets that minute. It was a minute, less than a minute to say no. And he regretted for the rest of his life because he could expedite his progress and he could be serving the Lord or serving Jesus um, ahead of time. Senator Publius Lentulus Cornelius discarnates in Pompeii when the Vesuvius volcano, erupt. We know all about the Vesuvius, how the corpses and the bodies, they were petrified. They're like a stone. By that time, he was blind. And interesting enough, there is a little detail. He was already following Jesus' teachings, and he was part of a Christian movement just by the very end of his life, which was positive. At least he did it right at the end of the life. We know we are eternal spirits, so let's see how he starts the next round. Oh, and before that, because he decided to continue serving the Roman Empire, and because he followed Jesus as a research, right, and to report back to the emperor, he wrote a letter. We found the letter in these YouTube channels, and it is in Portuguese. So please forgive our translation. Um, we have a friend that helped us, but if it's not a good translation from the Portuguese to English, please forgive us. Portuguese is not our first language, not in this lifetime. So the Senator Publius Lentulus Cornelius starts saying, here, finally, is the answer you have been waiting for with so much anxiety. Lately, a, a man of a strange power appeared in Judea, whose real name is Jesus Christ, but whom the people call the great prophet. And his disciples call him the Son of God. Every day, great wonders are told of him. He raises the dead, heals all illnesses, and brings all of Jerusalem into amazement with his extraordinary doctrine. He is a tall man with a majestic appearance. His face, at the same time severe and sweet, inspires respect and love in those who see him. His hair is the color of the wine and falls wavy over his shoulders, which is divided in half in Nazarene style. His forehead, pure and proud, his skin pale and limpid, his mouth and nose are perfect. The beard is abundant and at the same the same color of the hair. The hands thin and long, the arms of enchanting grace, blue eyes, placid and bright. He is serious, judicious, and sober in his speeches. Rebuking and condemning, he is terrifying. Instructing and exhorting, his word is sweet and caressing. No one has seen him laugh, but many have seen him cry. He walks with the bare feet and head covered. Seeing him from a distance, there are those who despise him, but in his presence, there is no one who does not tremble with deep respect. When they approach him, They say they have received enormous benefits, but they accuse him of being a danger to your majesty because he publicly he publicly states that kings and slaves are all equal before God. And let us these words to sink into our souls. Because for a man who decided not to follow Jesus, who decided to close his spiritual ears to the message of love and redemption, writing with such detail not only Jesus' physical appearance, which is we found is beautiful, but also his senses, that he's high and above everybody. Such a respect. However, what Senator Publius didn't like, it was these ideas of equity, I'm sorry. When he say at the end, he calls Your Majesty to the emperor, Your Majesty, he is a danger because he's saying in public that slaves and kings are equal before God. So that was the threat for the Roman Empire. Even though by the end of his life as the senator, he found that this makes sense for me. So then, in the book 50 Years Later, he portrays his following reincarnation. So he was this senator for 2 consecutive reincarnations, probably more, we don't know. He was in the Roman government, let us put it that way. The next reincarnation, he's in the very low, in the very last step of the pyramid, right? Which is a slave. And he's the slave Nestorio, and he has a very loving character. He's a very loving character in the book 50 Years Later. By the way, we are inviting you to read all of these 5 books because they are amazing, really. So he's the slave Nestorio. He lived around the year 131 after Christ. He was born in Asia. He learned, interesting enough, as a slave, he was brought to Egypt, and he learned a lot of the Egyptian religion, which believed in reincarnation, life after life, communication with the spirits. And then he is brought to Judea, and he is brought as a gift. He is brought as a gift to a family, to the main character's family. So Nestorio arrives to this family. There is the father, Roman patrician. There is the mother, Alba Lucia, and there are 2 daughters, teenagers' daughters. And they found this slave, even for being a slave, it has such a elegant presence and very serious. When he arrives to this home, he's in his 40s, 40 something. And he becomes a teacher, a counselor, a guide for the girls, especially for the main character, Celia, which she undergoes such a challenging situations, and she's another spirit that we use as a role model. But he was engaged with this family and provide her with the spiritual support as like a father. Interesting enough, he had a son in that lifetime, and Celia fall in love with this uh, son, with the slave. And this is something very inappropriate in that culture. But we're not going to spoil this story for you, just to let you know how in one lifetime we are the king of the world, and in the next lifetime we are doing something minimum in front of the eyes of humans. Because in front of the eyes of God, we can be, I don't know, we don't know what is like a low uh, job, because we appreciate everybody. But let's say with the humans' eyes, the guys who take care of the trash, who pick the trash from the streets, that is a very difficult job. And they're dealing with trash, with everything that we uh, don't like and we don't need and need, and they live with all these smells and stains and things. Well, we can be one of these people, but in the previous life, we were living in a mansion with a lot of servants, because every reincarnation in different countries with different social status, with different levels of education, definitely it is because they are the appropriate conditions for us to learn the lessons that we need to learn. So after the slave Nestorius discarnate, and he discarnates because he was persecuted. Um, he was persecuted as a Christian, um, so he was tied to a post, and he died because he was executed with arrows. But he didn't deny his faith for Jesus and for the new message. So then he reincarnated in 2017 before Christ as a Roman patrician. You see, he goes up, down, up, down. And we can see his story in Hail Christ in the year 2017, more or less. His name is Quinto Varro. Quinto Varro is a very loving father, husband, loyal to his country, but now he has a different perspective. Now he believes in equity. Now he believes in justice for all. Now he sees everybody as a human, because the slaves or slavery is definitely the root is dehumanizing the individual. So we see the individual as an object that we can use and abuse, but not like a human with rights and with emotions and with ideas. So that was his philosophy at the time. There is a conspiracy against him because of his ideas. He takes a boat. He's leaving uh, Rome, and he's going to France, so Mediterranean, right? So in the boat there is a conspiracy to kill him. However, he is alert. Someone alert him. In the same boat, there is this. We can call him some sort of priest or some sort of a brother. You know, at the in the first um, Christians, they didn't have priests or friars or nuns, but the people who dedicate over their life spreading the good news, they were some sort of priests. So in the same boat is this gentleman who is very ill and very sick, and Quinto Varro spent the night with him. And we are going to call it priest, he discarnate. So he discarnate, and because Quinto Varro is alert that someone is trying to kill him, to sabotage his trip to the Gallias at the time, the Gale at this time. He takes the place of these priests. He takes his clothes. Someone help to put the priest's body in, somewhere else, and he pretends that he's this dead person. So he's thrown to the sea, and he finally made his way to France, but he needed to take this priest's, how do you say, identity. So from now on, he's going to be Brother Corvino. And Brother Corvino, one of his main desires, he had, as a Quinto Barro, he has his family and he has a son, a beloved son. But this son, he was all about the luxury and the material life that his position offered him. All the pleasures and, the exuberant parties and things, and he didn't want to hear anything about the spirit. And this was a constant pain for Brother Corvino. And now that he was supposedly dead, he cannot go back to his family. He takes another identity. He needs, just for him to survive. So he decides, to continue guiding, helping, serving, spreading the good news, but always in his heart thinking about his son. We don't want to spoil the book, but there is a part of the book in which Brother Corvino and his son, which his name escaped to us, they have an encounter, and what an encounter. But he always was this devoted father, not only to him, but to some other um, characters in the book. So we are moving from 2017 to 228, and he had here a very short reincarnation. When we have short reincarnations, sometimes it's because we need just to have this shock with our vital fluids, for instance. Is because we need to conclude something that we couldn't. Is because our parents need to learn something from that. But usually these very quick and brief reincarnations are for us to finish some businesses that we couldn't. So he is Quinto Salso. He's a prodigy in the arts of writing and reading. No surprise, we start with the great priest in Egypt, right? So one of the things that the spirit carry is all the learnings, intellectual learning, moral learning, how to ride a bike, how to cook, how to sew, how to be a mother, how to be a father, how to be a good citizen. It's all kind of learning. So he carried this with him. He's openly a Christian person, and he discarnated at the age of 14. And he was born in a post, tied to a post. So we are seeing here that he is having also successive reincarnations and being a martyr. Let us check what happened with the previous one when he needed to. Oh, yes, he discarnated. He was decapitated in the previous one, also for being a Christian. So this is like a commonality in some of these reincarnations at the beginning, after Christ, let us put it that way. And then we go to the 5th century. He appears in France. He is a very smart young boy. Something that we found interesting is that all the reincarnations that we get to know about Emmanuel, he is in a masculine body. We are pretty sure that he had reincarnations as a woman, but we couldn't find any information about it. And in the research that Geraldo did, at least what Chico is sharing with us, none of his reincarnations were as a woman. And here's the rhetorical question: why? Do you wanna answer, Janete?
Because the woman that time had no power, had no voice, no voice.
Janete and the owner, Janete is saying maybe because the women at those early times they didn't have any power, and the only size because they didn't have any voice, which is one of the main reasons. Yes. So you have, and also women, they were um, secluded in the intimate life. They were prohibited to be in the public life. And if you want to grow this movement of loving your brother and your sister as you love yourself, right? That's the message. So I need to be a public figure. And to be a public figure, it is better to do it in a masculine body. So he was called Remigius, called also Remis or Remy. And he was a very devoted Catholic priest, always thinking in the poorest of the poor, always serving. He didn't care much for all this hierarchical organization of the Catholic Church. However, it was the perfect scenario for him to do charity and to serve the little ones in the spirit, right? For France, this Saint Remis is one of the great figures of the country. They also have a cathedral on his name, and he did a prediction to his people, and he say, if you and we are paraphrasing, but if you change your heart and if you turn your heart to God, this land will be a prolific land blessed by God, but only if you change your heart. So he was predicting later on how our dear Allan Kardec, Professor Hippolyte Leon Rivali, reincarnate to bring us the Spiritist literature, right? So Saint Remis was there in France, and let us remember how the previous two of the before being the boy who discarnate in Rome, he was in France like a brother, Vinicio, right? So it's also interesting to see how we stay in the same geographical area, and we are moving little by little to all different geographical areas according with our needs or with the plans of God. Then this is a very popular character person for the Brazilians, if I'm not mistaken, is the Father Manuel da Nóbrega. He was born in Portugal. He lived about 15, 17. How do you express those years? 1517 year. Smart, bright. He was sent to the University of Salamanca in Spain at the age of 17 years old because he was so bright. And he was born in a well family, yes, in a well family with resources. So they say, okay, this boy needs great education at the time. What was closest to Portugal was Spain, Salamanca. Then he continued his studies and he graduated with a doctorate in philosophy and canon law. And then he traveled to Brazil. He did several trips to Brazil, if we are not mistaken. The first trips, it was for him to observe the land and to choose the land on which he will later found the city of Sao Paulo, or how do you say that in English? Sao Paulo, that was founded in January 25th, 1554. Looking my Brazilian friends just to make sure that we brought the correct information. Uh, Besides, he was a Jesuit, a Catholic priest at the time. And again, why a Jesuits? Because the Jesuits, they were a community that at time they have also the financial means to travel and expand themselves, as a difference of the Franciscans or some other communities, Catholic religious communities. So we are seeing how Catholicism plays a great role in the spiritual and moral growing of humanity. And obviously, this is a organization, a religion that is exercised by humans. So obviously, there are mistakes, and there are people that abuse, and there are mischievous people there, and all the news that we know. But also, it's all this good work that use Catholicism as the platform to create what we have now as a spiritist, to sow, to work this land. So Father Manuel, he was a great defender of the rights and freedom of the indigenous people. Something common, because he was against slavery in his previous lives. So he already had this in his hard drive. He knows that we are, all of us, we are the same in God's eyes. His great interest, it was to convert the indigenous people from Brazil into Catholicism. But he did it with tenderness, like a father for them. And after being Father Manuel da Nóbrega, we can find him again as another father in 1613. And he is Father Damiano, or Father Damian, and he lived in Avila. And we found Father Damian in the book Renunciation with Alcione. Who doesn't love Alcione? Who was Celia and knows Alcione? We're going to do a talk about her because she's fantastic. We will say she's an angel.
So she was first
Celia,
and then
Alcione. Yes. And you see how the spirits we born with, like, in the same family circles, on the same people circle, in the same. So he was Father Damian. He lived in Avila in Spain. He was an enlightened and dedicated priest with a noble and balanced character. That's like his rubric. I don't know how to say, but that's his trademark. Noble and balanced. Always this equilibrium. He fights against the slave traders, and he dedicates his entire life to his neighbor, to serve the others. After living in Avila, he moved to Paris, and he is the spiritual, he's Alcione's spiritual mentor. We don't know if it's vice versa, because Alcione was, but Alcione undergoes social challenging circumstances again, that she needs this good friend, a friend of the spirit. And Father Damian was with her all the way through her struggles. And he discarnated in Paris. He acquired a lung disease and discarnated. And it was called the La Plaga Negra. How do we say that? The the Black Pets plague, the Black Plague. That was, and that is reflected in the book Renunciation. So after being Father Damian, there are some other reincarnations, obviously, but we are approaching the end of our time, and at the same time, the end of the presentation. So one of the interesting facts that Chico Xavier shared with us is like he started perceiving Emmanuel as his mentor, spiritual mentor, spirit mentor, around 1920. And Chico was very, very, very young, around 17 years or so, more or less. And he couldn't see, Chico couldn't see Emmanuel. He perceived Emmanuel as a great ray of light with the shape of a cross. So basically, it's like here is my spirit mentor, and I see a cross made of light. That was his perception. 10, 11 years later, Emmanuel presents himself like let's say with a human characteristics to Chico, because he waited for Chico to mature, not only as a individual, but to mature spiritually. And with Chico, they start having this great relationship. They wrote, Emmanuel as the author, Chico as the medium, more than 350 books. And Chico expressed in this TV show that on the 70s that was called Pinga Foro in Brazil, he announced, to the public that his relationship with Emmanuel is like a father and son. So Chico found in Emmanuel this caring, sweet, noble character, yet firm, uh, asking Chico to have discipline and discipline and discipline. But it was this tender discipline, like we know we need to do to accomplish things, but it's not by imposition, it's not by obligation, it's not by alienation. It's because we know in our heart. Also, Chico shared with all of us that Emmanuel reincarnated. Well, he announced in the 80s, he announced Emmanuel is going to reincarnate. And everybody was, oh, what? But after that, so Emmanuel reincarnated in the year 2000, somewhere in the countryside of the state of Sao Paulo, Brazil. And Chico had this out-of-body experience. The day that the spirit of Emmanuel is reincarnated, right, to this baby, we don't know if it's a baby boy or a baby girl, we don't know. Chico detached himself and he goes to the place and he witnessed how Emmanuel is coming back to planet Earth. And then he said he can disclose, because just imagine, by reading all his books, by knowing how Emmanuel is like a famous star. We want to know him, and we want his advice, and we want to go after him, and because our spirit is thirsty of this enlightenment. So to protect the boy or the girl, he didn't disclose the location, he didn't disclose the family, and he say, you will get to know him or her by his or her acts. So we don't know. Here she's now 23. Must be doing something good on the planet, right? We don't know yet. Probably is still local. Like Chico, when he was 17 or 23, he was local. He wasn't this worldwide famous figure, right? So let us Be grateful with this tender and deep love that this benevolent spirit of Emmanuel has for us as younger sisters and brothers. He doesn't need to reincarnate anymore. He can be living in some other more evolved planet doing some other things, but he decided to stick here for the love of humanity and for the love of those spirits that he is part of that circle, that they're still here on the planet struggling. You see? So we're going to finish with this communication that Chico received from Emmanuel in 1949, and he says, the work of the gospel, and we are sorry, this is a translation from Portuguese. The work of the gospel continues. The change of names is not important. Above all, the execution of it is what it matters. The flag of the cross proceeds. All around us, there is people who are thirsty for the Savior. In other words, it was good to know about his reincarnations, how he served humanity, how he struggled, how he grew. But the most important part is to continue working, learning, and serving. We have an excerpt from this book that is called Calm. Um, we think we have time to read it. It's about 3 pages, but we just took certain ideas. Okay, and let us conclude with that. Emmanuel says, passing through the earth, it is always useful to remember that you are in an educational learning on earth. Marching in the paths of evolution, it is no time that passes through you. On the contrary, it is the creature that passes through time. Keep hope among your troubled supplies. Walk, working and doing all the good you can. Accept your companions along the way as they show themselves, without demanding from them the perfection from which we all are still very far. Bear the failures of others with patience, recognizing that we, the spirits still bound to earth, are not exempt from imperfections. Lift the fallen and shelter those who stumble. Do not complain. Praise, thank, bless, and serve always. And let us not forget that our achievements constitute our own baggage, and that for everything that we donate or do on earth, we will have the right equation in the spiritual life. Emmanuel. So let us continue our journey, dear friends, and let us be grateful for today, for the here and right now. We're still attached to this beautiful body that is helping us to achieve what we need to achieve. Thank you. So let me minimize here. Okay. So what we're going to do now, we're going to read. Okay. It says, thanks, Alba, for this beautiful presentation. From all the Emmanuel's reincarnations, which one do you consider the most important? The one he was the senator, Publius Lentulus, because he got to know Christ, Jesus, in person. But when he was Father Manuel da Nóbrega and founded Sao Paulo, that's an important one too. Yes, let us see what's another. Hello, Iracema. Uh, uh, okay, da, 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 da. Okay, there is the same question. Then thanks, Alba. Okay, it's the same question. Huh. Okay, so we have the same question in different from Facebook and from. Okay, I don't know here in the audience. Is there any question or comment? Thank you, Abby. Abby's there saying hello.
I just want to say that it was amazing to hear all of this. Really appreciate your time preparing for all of this because it was a very wonderful presentation.
Thank you. Remind me, is your ID?
Agnes.
Agnes. Agnes
Yes.
is here that she likes the presentation. She's being grateful with the presenter for putting all this material together. And what else, Agnes?
There was some things that I've heard before, but the details that you presented, I think was wonderful.
And Agnes is saying that she already knew some of the details of these different reincarnations, knew some of these reincarnations, but not the details, some of the details. Let me keep checking here if there is something else. Okay, Abby says, thank you, Alba. And Rosaura says, thank you, Alba. And Paula says, enlightening talk. Thank you, friends. Thank you, thank you. I don't know if there is any comment or.
Beautiful, thank you.
Mhm.
Very nice.
Okay. So if we don't have any more questions or comments, we are so very grateful for this time, for this moment. This was a dear work for me, for us. It touched really our hearts and give us so much hope, right? So we are so very grateful. We are going to conclude our live presentation, but here at the center, we are going to do our prayer and our passes. Thank you.